The night was unusually quiet in Springfield, the kind of stillness that felt like the world was holding its breath. Bart Simpson sprawled on the roof of the family's house, fiddled with a telescope he'd borrowed from Springfield Elementary's science lab. He was supposed to be grounded for spray painting Principal Skinner's car, but sneaking out was second nature. The stars twinkled above, indifferent to his mischief, as he swung the telescope toward the moon. "Let's see what's up with you big cheese wheel," he muttered, expecting nothing more than a boring cratered surface. What he saw made his jaw drop. The moon wasn't just a lifeless rock. It had a face. Two hollow, cavernous eyes stared down, unblinking, and a wide, toothy grin stretched across its surface, sharp teeth glinting in a way that sent a chill down Bart's spine. "Whoa, that's no pizza topping," he whispered, half laughing, half panicked. He rubbed his eyes, convinced it was a trick of the light or maybe too much expired squishy. But when he looked again, the face was still there, and the moon seemed closer. Its grin widened, as if it knew he was watching. Inside the Simpson household, Lisa sat at her desk, poring over astronomy books. Bart burst through her door, dragging the telescope. "Lisa, you gotta see this. The moon's got a face like some creepy jack-o'-lantern." Lisa rolled her eyes, assuming it was another of Bart's pranks, but his wide-eyed urgency made her pause. She peered through the telescope and gasped. The moon's eyes were deep, endless voids, and its smile was a grotesque mockery of joy. "This isn't possible," she stammered, her mind racing. "The moon doesn't just grow a face." Downstairs, Marge was knitting, trying to ignore the faint hum that had been vibrating through the house all evening. Homer lounged on the couch, a Duff beer in hand, half watching a rerun of Itchy and Scratchy. Maggie sucked on her pacifier, oblivious. Suddenly the TV flickered, static cutting through the cartoon's violence. Kent Brockman's face appeared on the screen, his usual smarmy confidence faltering. "Good evening, Springfield. We're receiving reports of, an unusual lunar phenomenon. Scientists say it's nothing to worry about. Probably just swamp gas or a weather balloon." He chuckled nervously, but then a coffee mug floated past his head, defying gravity. The camera wobbled as papers and pens began drifting upward. Folks, stay tuned and maybe stay indoors?" Marge frowned, clutching her knitting needles. "Homer, something's wrong." Before Homer could respond with his usual, "Marge, relax, it's just TV," the living room shook. The couch slid across the floor, and Maggie's pacifier popped out, floating toward the ceiling. "What the?" Homer yelped, grabbing the couch to steady himself. Outside, the streets of Springfield erupted into chaos. Car alarms blared as vehicles lifted off the ground, hovering briefly before crashing into trees. Streetlights bent like rubber, their bulbs popping in showers of sparks. People screamed, some clinging to mailboxes, others being pulled upward as if the sky itself was hungry. Bart and Lisa rushed to the window, watching in horror as the moon loomed larger, its grotesque face now visible without a telescope. Its eyes seemed to pulse, and its toothy grin stretched impossibly wide, as if savoring the panic below. "Lisa, what's happening?" Bart shouted, his usual bravado crumbling. Lisa's voice trembled as she tried to rationalize it. "The moon, it's moving closer to Earth. That's impossible, but it's affecting gravity. This could be catastrophic." She grabbed her notebook, scribbling furiously, trying to make sense of the impossible. At the Quickie Mart, Apu cowered behind the counter as cans of Buzz Cola floated and exploded, spraying sticky syrup everywhere. "This is worse than the time Homer tried to deep fry a buffalo," he muttered, dodging a levitating Slurpee machine. Across town, Moe's Tavern was a mess. Beer mugs floated, and Moe clung to the bar, cursing. "If this is the end, I ain't serving no free drinks," he bellowed, but his voice was drowned out by a low, rumbling hum that seemed to come from the sky itself. Back at the Simpson house, Marge herded the family into the basement, her maternal instincts overriding her fear. "We need to stay together," she insisted, but Homer was distracted trying to catch a floating bag of pork rinds. Zero-gravity snacks," he mumbled, only to yelp as the bag burst, pelting him with crumbs. Maggie, still floating, giggled eerily, her pacifier orbiting her head like a tiny satellite. The hum grew louder, vibrating in their bones, and the walls began to creak, as if the house itself was straining against an unseen force. Lisa, clutching her telescope, ran back upstairs to take another look. The moon was now so close, it filled. Off the sky, its face dominating the horizon. Its eyes seemed to lock onto her, and for a moment she felt a cold, invasive presence in her mind, whispering words she couldn't understand. She stumbled back, heart pounding. "Bart, this isn't just astronomy. The moon, it's alive," she whispered. Bart, for once, had no snarky comeback. He just stared, his slingshot dangling uselessly in his hand. Outside, the chaos intensified. People ran through the streets, some screaming, others laughing hysterically as if possessed. The moon's face seemed to shift, its grin growing wider, more predatory. At the Springfield nuclear power plant, Mr. Burns watched from his office, rubbing his hands. "Smithers, this could be an opportunity. A sentient moon? We could harness its power?" Smithers, pale and trembling, muttered, "Sir, I think we should focus on not dying first." The chapter closes with the Simpsons huddled in the basement, the house shaking as the moon's gravitational pull tears at Springfield. Lisa clutches her notebook, determined to find answers. Bart, uncharacteristically quiet, stares at the ceiling where faint cracks are forming. Marge holds Maggie tightly, whispering, "It'll be okay," though her voice wavers. Homer, still clutching a pork rind, mutters, "Why couldn't it be a giant donut?" Above them, the moon's face looms, its eyes glowing with an ancient, malevolent hunger, and somewhere in the distance, a faint, eerie chant begins to rise from the streets, hinting at the horrors to come. The basement of the Simpson household was damp and cramped, the air thick with the smell of mildew and fear. Marge clutched Maggie tightly, her eyes darting to the ceiling where cracks spiderwebbed wider with each tremor. Homer sat on an old camping chair, munching on the last of the pork rinds, oblivious to the low, ominous hum that pulsed through the walls. Bart and Lisa exchanged worried glances, the telescope now forgotten upstairs. The moon's grotesque face, with its hollow eyes and toothy grin, haunted their thoughts. Springfield was unraveling, and the Simpsons were caught in the eye of the storm. Outside, the chaos had taken a darker turn. Reverend Lovejoy stood atop a makeshift podium in the town square, his usual sanctimonious tone replaced by a feverish zeal. "The moon has awakened," he bellowed, his eyes gleaming unnaturally. "It is our divine judge, come to cleanse Springfield of its sins." Beside him, Mr. Burns, his skeletal frame draped in a robe adorned with crescent moons, nodded approvingly. A crowd had gathered, some trembling with fear, others nodding as if entranced. They wore masks, crudely painted with wide, toothy smiles and empty eyes that mirrored the moon's face. The masks seemed to writhe, as if alive, their edges blending. Into the wearer's skin, Marge, determined to keep her family safe, forbade anyone from leaving the basement. "We stay here until this thing passes," she insisted, her voice shaking, but Homer, scratching his head, grumbled, "Marge, I'm out of snacks. I'm just gonna pop over to the Quickie Mart." Before she could stop him, he lumbered. Upstairs, oblivious to the danger, Bart, never one to follow rules, saw his chance. "If Dad's going, I'm checking this out too," he declared, slipping out the door before Marge could grab him. In the streets, Bart found a Springfield transformed. The moon hung impossibly low, its face now filling the sky, its grin stretching wider, as if savoring the chaos. The air was thick with a sickly sweet smell, like rotting fruit mixed with ozone. Bart ducked behind an overturned hot dog cart as, A procession of cultists marched by, chanting in a guttural language that made his skin crawl. They carried trays of rosquinhas, Homer's beloved donuts, dripping with a viscous red liquid that wasn't glaze. One cultist, who Bart recognized as comic book guy, turned toward him, his mask's eyes glowing faintly. "Join us, Bart Simpson," he intoned, his voice distorted. "The moon sees all." Bart bolted, heart pounding, but not before noticing that comic book guy's hands were elongating, fingers stretching like taffy. Back at home, Lisa pored over her astronomy books, her hands trembling as she scribbled notes. The telescope revealed more than just the moon's face. Faint, shimmering waves of energy pulsed from its surface, like ripples in a pond. "This isn't just gravitational," she muttered. "It's biological." She hacked into Springfield Elementary's outdated computer lab remotely, accessing satellite data that confirmed her worst fears. The moon was emitting a form of cosmic radiation, altering the DNA of anyone exposed. Her eyes widened as she realized the implications. "It's turning us into something else," she whispered. Meanwhile, Homer reached the Quick E-Mart, only to find it a war zone. Apu was barricaded behind the counter, wielding a broom against floating cans of Buzz Cola that exploded like grenades. "Homer, get out!" Apu shouted, but Homer was distracted, reaching for a floating bag of chips. As he grabbed it, his hand twitched unnaturally, his fingers lengthening, his skin turning pale and cratered like the moon's surface. He blinked, and his eyes darkened, pupils shrinking to pinpricks. Chips," he mumbled. But his voice was wrong, too deep, too resonant. He grinned, and his smile stretched wider than humanly possible, revealing jagged, moon-like teeth. Bart, fleeing the cultists, stumbled into an alley where he saw Mo leading a ritual. The bartender's face was half transformed, one eye sunken and glowing, his mouth a grotesque parody of the moon's grin. "The moon demands sacrifice," Mo growled, raising a knife over a pile of blood-soaked rosquinhas. Bart tried to back away, but a cultist grabbed him, forcing a mask toward his face. "Wear it, boy," the cultist hissed, its voice a chorus of whispers. Bart kicked free and ran, but the mask seemed to pulse in the cultist's hands, its painted eyes following him. Back in the basement, Marge noticed something wrong with Maggie. The baby's pacifier floated in front of her, but her eyes were wrong, dark, empty pools that reflected the moon's glow. "Maggie, sweetie," Marge whispered. Reaching out, Maggie giggled, a sound that was too deep, too alien. The pacifier spun faster, and the room shook as Maggie levitated, her tiny body casting an impossibly long shadow with a toothy grin. Marge screamed, pulling back, her heart pounding. Lisa burst into the basement, her face pale. "Mom, the moon's radiation is infecting people. It's rewriting their DNA, turning them into servants of the moon." She showed Marge her notes, diagrams of cellular mutations that looked like lunar craters. "We need to find a way to block it or we'll all change." But before Marge could respond, the basement door slammed open. Homer stood there, his face half transformed, his smile a grotesque echo of the moon's. "Marge, why so serious?" he slurred, his voice layered with an unearthly hum. "The moon just wants to play." The chapter ends with Springfield descending into madness. The cult grows, their chants echoing through the streets, and the moon looms closer, its face now a constant presence, day and night. Bart hides in an alley, clutching his slingshot, his bravado shattered. Lisa and Marge stare at Homer, unsure if he's still the man they love or a puppet of the moon. Above, the moon's grin widens, and a faint whisper fills the air, promising more horrors to come. The Simpson basement was no longer a sanctuary. The walls groaned under the moon's relentless gravitational pull, and the air buzzed with an unnatural hum that seemed to seep into their bones. Marge clung to Maggie, whose dark, hollow eyes stared back with an alien intensity, her pacifier orbiting her head like a cursed satellite. Homer loomed in the doorway, his face a grotesque parody of the moon's, with cratered skin and a smile that stretched too wide, teeth jagged and glinting. "Come on, Marge," he slurred, his voice a layered echo. "Join the moon's party." Lisa, clutching her notebook, shook her head. "We have to stop this," she whispered, her voice trembling but resolute. Bart, back from his harrowing, escaped from the cult, gripped his slingshot, his usual defiance replaced by a grim determination. Springfield was falling apart, and the Simpsons were running out of time. Lisa dragged Marge and Bart to Springfield Elementary, where Professor Frink was frantically assembling a ramshackle spaceship in the gymnasium. "Glavin, this lunar menace is emitting a bio-cosmic radiation that's rewriting human DNA into something unholy," Frink stammered, adjusting his glasses as a wrench floated past. The ship, cobbled together from school bus parts and fueled by a vat of Duff beer, was their only hope. "We must confront the moon directly," Lisa nodded, her research confirming that the moon's core held the source of its power, a pulsing, otherworldly entity. Marge hesitated, glancing at Maggie, who floated silently, her giggle now a low, guttural hum. "We can't leave her," Marge said, tears welling. Bart, swallowing his fear, muttered, "Then we take her with us. Let's kick that moon's creepy butt." The launch was chaotic. The ship rattled as it broke through Springfield's warped atmosphere, the moon's face now dominating the sky, its eyes locked on the tiny vessel. Inside, Homer's condition worsened, his arms elongated, slithering like tentacles, and his laughter echoed with the moon's hum. "Homer, fight it," Marge pleaded, but he only grinned wider, muttering about the Great Eye. Maggie, strapped in, stared blankly, her eyes reflecting the moon's glow. Lisa, monitoring the ship's instruments, noticed the radiation spiking. "It's getting stronger the closer we get," she warned. Bart, gripping the controls with Frink, shouted, "Then let's ram this thing and be done with it." Landing on the moon was like stepping into a nightmare. The surface was a grotesque tapestry of human faces, frozen in silent screams, their eyes and mouths melded into the lunar rock. Bart gagged, recognizing neighbors, Lenny, Carl, even Mrs. Muntz, trapped in the moon's flesh. The air was thick with a sickly, sweet stench, and the ground pulsed beneath their feet. In the center loomed a colossal eye, larger than Springfield's town square, its pupil a swirling vortex of darkness. It pulsed rhythmically, sending waves of energy that made their skin crawl. "That's the source," Lisa whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum. "We have to destroy it." Homer, now barely recognizable, lunged toward the eye, his body twisting into a mass of cratered flesh. "Homer, no!" Marge screamed, but he turned, his grin splitting his face. "Duh. It's beautiful," he rasped, before throwing himself into the eye's vortex. His body liquefied, merging with the moon's surface, his laughter echoing as he became part of it. Marge collapsed, sobbing, while Maggie floated higher, her giggle merging with the hum. Lisa, tears streaming, grabbed a tool from Frink's kit, a makeshift disruptor, and aimed it at the eye. "Bart, help me!" she shouted. Bart, shaking, fired his slingshot, loaded with a piece of the ship's core, distracting the eye as Lisa activated the device. The disruptor hummed, countering the moon's radiation. The eye shuddered, its pupil contracting, and the moon's face contorted in a silent scream. The ground cracked, faces dissolving into dust, and the hum faltered. Maggie blinked, her eyes clearing slightly, and the ship shook as the moon began to recede, its face fading back to a lifeless orb. But the victory was hollow. Homer was gone, absorbed into the moon, and Springfield lay in ruins below. Back on Earth, the Simpsons emerged from the ship into a shattered Springfield. Buildings were crumbled, streets littered with debris and grotesque half-transformed bodies. Cratered skin, elongated limbs, frozen in moonlight grins. The cultists were gone, either dead or vanished, their masks scattered like discarded husks. Marge held Maggie, who seemed herself again, though her eyes still flickered with an eerie glint. Lisa surveyed the wreckage, her notebook clutched tightly. "We stopped it. For now," she said, but her voice was heavy. Bart kicked a rock, muttering, "Stupid moon, stupid Homer." That night, the family sat on their broken porch, staring at the sky. The moon hung silently, its face gone, but a faint smile seemed to linger in its craters. Marge wiped her eyes, whispering, "Homer's up there, somewhere." Lisa, haunted by her visions of the eye, noticed something chilling. Faint lights. In the distance, Saturn, Neptune, Jupiter, each with a hint of a grin forming. The moon was asleep, but its siblings were stirring, their eyes turning toward Earth. The chapter ends with Springfield survivors picking through the rubble, their faces marked by fear and loss. The Simpsons huddle together, the weight of their sacrifice heavy. The moon looms above, silent but watching, and the distant planet's grins grow sharper, promising that the horror is far from over.